Henry Fayol's principle of scalar chain. Before knowing this principle, let us understand what do you mean by scalar chain. Well, scalar chain is a hierarchy of authority created from top level to lower level for the purpose of communication. In simple word, in any organization, whenever any information passes, there has to be a chain of process for it. This chain is called a scalar chain. Now understand what happens. In any organization, if any information has to be passed, it should be passed from a lower level employee to a higher level employee, next superior. That superior passes the information to his boss, and then it goes to the higher management and so on and so forth. Generally, it doesn't happen that an employee directly or a lower level employee directly talks to the top management. Always this flow of communication happens in a scalar chain manner. So most of the organizations works on scalar chain concepts. Whenever there is a communication between a bottom level or lower level management to a top level management, all the functionalities between those two levels are aware about what is happening. Now this creates a harmony in working and confidence amongst what is happening and awareness about all the activities. Let us take an example how this scalar chain works, and it is available everywhere. Let's talk about your college. So a student wants to communicate anything to the trustee. Do they directly go to the trustee? No. They first communicate to their student groups. Then the student groups do what? They communicate to the teachers. Teachers do what? They communicate to the principals. And then if the situation is grave, the principal communicate to what? The trustees. Or whenever the trustee wants to communicate to student, they directly don't communicate to student. What they do? They instruct principals. Then principals communicate to teachers. Teachers create circulars and students get to know about what is being communicated to them. So this process of communication, these steps, these hierarchies of communications are basically called as principle of scalar chain. So according to Henry Fayol's principle of scalar chain is applicable everywhere. Every organization should have a scalar chain concept for communication. However, in certain organizations, there is a cross communication happens. That communication happens over the same level instead of going all the way following top and bottom. This type of cross communication is called as gangplank. For this kind of cross communication or gangplank, appropriate permissions has to be taken from concerned authorities. Let us take an example that how scalar chain works, what are their advantages, and what is gangplank and when they are used. Right? So in scalar chain, from bottom to top and top to bottom, there is always a chain. Everybody in the chain knows what happens between two levels of communications. So let's take an example. Operational foreman, or I would say worker, communicates his issues or things to his supervisor. Supervisor communicates his things to whom? Well, the operational or production manager. Production manager communicates his things to general manager. Now, if general manager wants to communicate the same information to other department, let's say accounting department, what happens? The general manager will instruct the finance manager. Finance manager will instruct account manager. Account manager will instruct accountant. And this way of communication will happen. But understand, in order to flow this communication from, let's say, worker to the accountant, it takes hell lot of time. So many a time, in order to save time in case of emergencies, gangplank is used, where with the appropriate authorities or permissions, what can happen? The worker can directly communicate to accountant and get his work done. Right? So in nutshell summary, what does this principle of scalar chain says? Well, principle of scalar chain means the hierarchy of authority from top level to lower level from the purpose of communication. Here, it is clearly stated that every organization should have communication flow in a scalar chain manner, which means lower level management employees wants to communicate to a top level, they cannot directly go, but they have to follow the chain, that they should communicate to their next, and the next will to next, and then the flow of communication will go up. Well, there is a drawback to this, that many a times this communication can lead to a lot of wastage of time. So in case of emergencies, certain situations, many organizations allow cross communication, that is known as gangplank, where the similar level management or similar level employees can communicate amongst themselves with due appropriate permissions.